What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interviews YouTube channel, where I have a wonderful excuse to talk about one of my favorite movies of 2022 with director Dan Trachtenberg. Prey, yet again, I get to say congratulations.
Thank you. You are one of my favorite people on one of my favorite channels. So it's a mighty pleasure to be here.
I love hearing it. I have a quick unrelated question. The piece behind you, what does it represent? What is it supposed to be?
That is, it's like written right there. It's 10 Cloverfield Lane. There's a site called Movie Palette. You're familiar with, yeah.
I'm well aware of them.
Well, funny enough, so this was on the site, which was so cool to see, and then I looked up Prey. Prey was not on the site. And so I reached out. There's a custom, you could do like a custom option. So I filled in Prey 2023, and they wrote back and saying, sorry, we can't do this movie, and I was like, well, I made it. Like, is there anything I can do to like help? And they wrote back like, oh, okay. Well, we just need it like in this file. And I got them the file like, oh, it's too big. And I literally went back and forth, like trying to make it happen. So I have in another room Prey, and the original Karate Kid as well. It's very meaningful to my wife and I. Yeah.
You're a big Karate Kid fan. So are you into Cobra Kai as well?
Love Cobra Kai. Love those guys. Yeah. I actually helped out a little I'd done The Boys with Elizabeth Shue in the pilot. And I directed the pilot for that. And she had just been asked about the show and was like, I don't know, And I was like, it's so good. Like, I freaked out over it. And then reached out to the guys that do it. And we all strategized of how to convince Lisa Shue to do it. Yes, I love the show.
I'm so glad you helped spark that, because her return to Cobra Kai was done so exceptionally. I knew the show's track record and how good they were at bringing back elements from a popular franchise, but her addition in particular I was most nervous about, and they absolutely nail it.
And she was nervous too. She'd had a very tragic situation in the first and part two and not returning. And so was very nervous about how it was going. It's a totally different perspective on that movie than not really, it was, for all of them, it was a silly movie with a silly name. We all fell in love with it, but we didn't all fall in love with Allie with a Knot. She was the cheerleader. She represented a very specific kind of female role in 80s movies that we quickly kind of forget about because of our deep affection for that movie. And so I agree, the guys handled it really well. And once she sparked to it, and realized what they were doing, I think it made it a no-brainer. But yeah.
I was going to save a question like this for closer to the end, but given we're talking about Karate Kid and Cobra Kai now, I wanted to mention that someone on Collider wrote a really nice piece about you. The title of it was Prey Shows Dan Trachtenberg's Gift for Transforming Franchises. And it's all about, celebrating how you're able to revamp and reinvigorate existing franchises. And I will agree with the piece. I think you do it exceptionally well. So after Cloverfield and now Predator, if you had the opportunity to do it again, what franchise would you pick and why?
I legally can't answer that.
I like that answer.
No, I mean, there are some. I definitely am. I continue to work on things that are not franchise related and that are very unique properties in their own way, and then things that are franchise related, but still. Even in the attempt in thinking about what might be next inside this franchise, I thought a lot of times we have a very bold either first movie or a sequel, and then they make a sequel from that is just the next thing, as opposed to no, the next one should also be let's make them all bold and exciting, and so that's what we've given a lot of thought to if there were to be more of this. And then there are some out there that are like, how the heck do you do? That's the most exciting thing. All the nuts I haven't cracked, but I think about those more than the things that I'm actually working on, because there's such challenges and that's the fun, that's the thrill. That frankly, my way into movies from commercials and podcasting initially was doing a short based on Portal, which the interest was like nobody's thinking of that as a movie at the time. That everyone, all the news was about Uncharted and Halo and all these things that were very cinematic ideas already that were derivative of movies. And so for me, it was like, well, can I take a puzzle game and make that cool? And much in the way that, like, not that I'm comparing myself to him, but Batman before Nolan was very silly. And he was like, I think this can be interesting and important and profound and awesome. It doesn't have to be silly because it's a guy in a bat. Like, we can do something different. I love that kind of challenge of taking a thing. That's what Prey was like, taking a thing that had been a little silly in recent years and saying, I think that it can be emotional and important and thrilling, so.
Okay, so that point can kind of bring me into the beginning of Prey, because I have a couple questions about the timeline of how all of this panned out. I guess the first thing I need to ask, though, is when the idea first started, and was it the situation where you bring a Predator idea to the studio, or do they tell you, we have the rights to Predator, do you have any ideas?
No, it wasn't that. I've certainly had those kinds of meetings too, but no, this one was, I've always thought about how can I make a movie with as little words as possible and as much action as possible. And Fury Road really charged me up of like, oh my gosh, like it kind of did it. You really can do that. And I just didn't want to make something only a thrill ride. I was trying to think of, is there a way to do that, but also have it feel emotionally charged as well? And was thinking about underdog stories and like, oh yeah, what if we took the engine of a sports movie and put that into this other thing? And so thought about a character trying to prove themselves, and then it led me to Native American, and like, oh right, like, and the Comanche in particular, we're so often in movies relegated to playing the sidekick or the villain, never the hero. So if we can make the movie starring that person, and also with the theme of the movie is also that idea, it creates this one-to-one relationship between audience and protagonist. I think about that a lot, and I'm just somewhat putting these pieces together now, like because of my inspiration from video games and my adoration of video games. That what I love is that how experiential they are and how linked. That what's exciting is that I really feel like that character, even when it's a third person game, I'm linked to that, and so I love when those things work in concert. So I love the idea that we could be rooting for the actor having a moment and the character having a moment. And should we feel like we're in her shoes, we are then having this moment. Like, I just thought that would be awesome. So yeah.
You say actor. Now I immediately want to start talking about Amber, but I do have one other timeline question, because I believe I saw in another interview you had mentioned that the hope initially was to be into production with this movie before the release of the 2018 Predator movie.
Yes.
So it was making me curious, given that didn't happen. When you saw that movie, did it inspire you to change or add anything to the Prey script?
No, and let me first clarify, because I didn't quite answer exactly what you asked anyway, which was I had this idea and they were making Shane's movie. It was either in prep or maybe in early stages of production, and my reps were like, they're making a movie, making the movie. And I was like, yeah, but this idea is I can't keep it in. So my angle was, I emailed an exec at 20th the pitch. I didn't even say that. I just emailed it to him, and said, I know you're doing what's sure to be the start of a new trilogy. Like, I get it, but maybe like Star Wars has 7, 8, 9, and then I don't even know if they were out at the time, but like Solo and Rogue One are these, like, so why don't we call this movie Prey, and then you can do this other thing while you're doing that thing, and so that was the hook that got them interested, and that this could actually be a great movie, hopefully. So yeah, and my part of that email was that we would have a teaser that comes out at some point without title, that just is the first half of Amber's story. It's just Comanche trying to prove himself, goes out in the woods and sees a fire in the sky, and you'd be like, "Oh, what is that? Great, what's that? What's that?" A very JJ style trailer. And then when Shane's movie came out, you'd attach the full trailer and have that bear moment in it where it reveals in blood. It's that thing we heard about earlier this year. It's a Predator movie, you know, and that was my dream. That was what I had laid out. That didn't work. That didn't work out. But I just want to be clear. I at no point thought that I would have loved if the movie could reveal it to an audience. But for me, it was like the sell was in the marketing movie. Like, we can still have that fun. I don't think anything changed. And, you know, the thing that we were relying on is, in success, Shane's movie was so, and really we were working off of only having read the script for his movie. And there was a lot more going on. There's a lot. It was like even more Shane Blacky than one could imagine. And I was like, so if this works, like, which is very kitchen sink. It's very like going bonkers with it. So then it's still cool that we have this other back to basics, stripped down tale. And if it turns out that doesn't work, when they eventually decide to make a Predator movie again, which has to happen at some point, even though there was couple years where I felt like maybe they won't. This sucks. But when they do, this would be the move you make, right? You make the movie that is more stripped down, and you went balls to the wall with the other. And so I knew that, because just to fill in a gap a little bit, like my reps were like, because the script was so good, they're like, maybe we take this out, not as a Predator thing, but thinking about, well, they got to eventually. And also thematically, I could not let go of, boy, that it is an antagonist whose main purpose is to find the alpha, find the worthy, and she's out there trying to say, I am, and it's saying, I don't see you. It makes her movie better, and she makes a Predator movie, but it's like, I can't not, we have to just wait, you know? So thankfully they dug it out of the file cabinet, but yeah, so that's the timeline.
So many thoughts. One, I'll just say, because you referenced the bear scene, that's still like one of my absolute favorite shots of film in 2022. It is just like an epic reveal, and everything about that sequence is something else. I also just love what you do here in terms of, you know, it feeling like a Predator movie that appeases fans, but it also being a perfect entryway for a newcomer that's never seen anything in this franchise before. And I feel like that is one of the most difficult. And I talk about that a lot when it comes to series in general, because with every new installment, essentially, if you're continuing a story, you're narrowing and narrowing and narrowing your viewership. This is a perfect opportunity to do the exact opposite, and it seems you have done that.
Thank you for saying it. To be candid, it was challenging, and we had an initial cut of the movie that really took for granted. That was always the ambition, but the initial cut, we took for granted people's awareness or even ability to follow what the Predator's up to. And some of our reshoots or additional, whatever you want to call it, were it used to be that the Predator was tracking her and she was tracking the Predator. And it was like this weird circle that was very hard to follow. And then we realized, the move that we need to make is put them on parallel paths that then collide. So we had we added the snake mouse bit where we also articulate the hierarchy that he's looking for, and the wolf scene. And are able to articulate trophy in the cave trophy, you know, and then it's on her path when it gets to the buffalo, and you know, like it's like, okay, they are parallel and then colliding. Two great hunters on opposite sides of the tracks, so to speak, and also articulating to newcomers to the franchise, because we had screened friends and family stuff where we were like, what do you think the Predator, you know, and someone was like, I think he's a vampire, because the bear scene. Like, they thought it was like drinking the blood of the bear. When you don't know all the other things, you know what I mean? Like, I know, I'm like, what? You know, but I get it, you know? So I can't tell you how many times in early days, because when people are unaware of what they're seeing, we got the like, but isn't the blood acid? You know, so many people said that. I was like, oh, so wrong. I get why you think that. It's green. And you sort of by proxy, like, are blending that, you know, but the movie has to do a better job at saying we're not exactly what we are.
Sometimes it's difficult for me to remove myself from this bubble where these things exist 24/7 and are kind of like part of my being.
Yes. Part of your being, 100%. Yeah.
I feel like I'm jumping all over the place right now, but just because we were talking about broadening the Predator audience, something else that makes me really excited right now is part of the reason we're talking is because Prey is currently on the award season circuit. And as a genre lover, that's a really special thing for me to see because my genre movies that I love dearly are often not included in that conversation. And, you know, I know we don't make these things to win awards and all of that, but as a genre lover yourself, I guess, what does it mean to you to have the film be in this type of consideration now? And what was your reaction the first time you realized it was going down that path?
It's awesome. I share your sentiment, and I grew up. I can't tell you how many times in film school repeating like Raiders of the Lost Ark was nominated for an Academy. You know, like I loved that, and I always felt like, well, why that? And then like nothing else after, you know, and always thinking John Woo should have won. Why is that? Why are those movies? Nobody makes movies like that. That's as much of an auteur that Tarantino is an auteur. Like, why is not that not being viewed that way, and the craft that goes into making sequences like he makes them, and don't get me started on stunts, you know, and all that stuff.
But I can go on and on about that category.
On and on. So I've always wanted to see that, but I will also say that I would never want there to be genre film Academy, like to me it's like, no, you want to make something that does fulfill the ultimate thing of like, it is what a thrill ride, and also people are finding it to be insightful and emotional and empowering, you know, like that it's doing all the things that we want to an award a movie for, while also being thrilling. So it is like, we had a nice little, like, the PGA, we were nominated for PGAs, and which is amazing for Jane, who's producer, who's, you know, Comanche yourself, and never that's a monumental thing, and all the other awardsy stuff. Now I'm making Hollywood Critic, whatever it was. So all that stuff has been awesome, and just being in the conversation when you make something like this, that's always a balance of like medicine and ice cream, you know. It's great to even be uttered by, and Barry Jenkins moderated one of our things, and he loved the movie, you know, like, it's like, it's just so cool, and also heartening having the interest that you and I have of like, it's just validating, you know, like, oh yeah, people, we love the same things. It's nice to find other people that like what you like. So yeah, it's dope. So cool.
Excuse to jump to Amber now because she has been getting a whole lot of award season love for her performance, as she should. So having worked with her, not that she's new to the business in any sense, but I just do have a feeling after seeing this movie that she's bound to headline more movies and shows in the future. So what is something about the way she works as a lead and also a collaborator for you that you're really excited for more directors to get to experience if they work with her in the future, when they work with her in the future? I need to rephrase that.
Great question. I thank you on Amber's behalf for that question. I mean, she no ego, no pretense, very down to earth, which I love. I'm really drawn to actors in general, and Amber is one of them, who are seeking, how would this really be? You know, like, what is the real human behavior behind this? And what is it, like, we're talking, like, we're not speaking in overly complicated language that makes things more esoteric. It's like, how do we get straight to the heart of truth of what is this like, so that it feels like a dagger into audience also, like, oh yeah, that's me there. I connect to that. and it's just fun to have a collaboration that is that grounded, that we can talk in real people terms and draw in more of our lives, more of the way I think about people, the way she thinks about people, as opposed to the way we think about drama, But that said, there is another. She has done genre. Actually, she has done genre, but not quite on this level. And so there certainly was a conversation about but in this, sometimes you just need a moment like this. Sometimes you just need, and she quickly snapped onto that as well. So, that's medicine and ice cream in the acting world. Is what is a moment that needs to happen for the genre element, and then where is a moment that we need to not let it off the hook that this is just a genre thing. No. We need to be austere in our approach to how does it feel authentic. So that's all a balancing act that she balanced very well on top of the crazy physicality and the day-to-day demands of being in almost every frame of the movie from an emotional perspective, from a physical perspective, never complaining, never even coming near a complaint, frankly, about any of it. And being, just good person that works well-intended, and then delivering in the most. She does this war cry at the end of the movie, that it's my favorite thing. And I've seen it a bajillion times and I get goosebumps every time I see it. I love it so much, and it's pure human emotion. There's just not everyone can do that. There's a lot of characters screaming in movies that we've seen, and they don't all feel so emotional. So yeah, I love her.
Speaking of how much she had her work cut out for her with this movie, I was remembering when we were doing the press conference conversation, she had mentioned that the script was intimidating because at a point she read something like 30 straight pages of action, which I imagine can be quite daunting to an actor. So as an actor's director in this situation, what are some of your top priorities to, make sure you get what you need from an actor who has to go through something like that, but while also being able to support them in the best possible way while during a taxing shoot?
I can tell you that I am not the director that will jump into the mud pit to show them I can do it too. And that is not me. I'm quick to say, we hired you for that, and I'm doing this, and I need to be clean to make all these other decisions. So I'm not that guy. But I, you do as much as you can without the person having to endure physicality, to protect, when they are there, we are all focused and doing the thing. It's so funny. I remember on Cloverfield Lane, which has a lot of dialogue, but there were stretches where there weren't, and those were the hardest things because it's like each sentence is a few shots to think about and to figure out, and so there's less kind of parameters for it, so it's very daunting. And this movie was all that, was almost all that, and I'll never again shoot a movie that's exterior forest day for the whole thing, forget it, because it's even location scouting was okay, yeah, I like those trees. Do you like these trees? Yeah, those trees are good. How do we even find, the thing? So all of it was a challenge, but yeah, I think I just did my best to maximize the time spent with her. And not over. Some people are not careful in what they're doing. Even emotional scenes, we had a conversation about the order. Do you want to get this out of the way? Do you want to build up to this? Do you want to do a lot of? Are you going to want to so everyone is kind of preparing for the moment. Yeah.
Going back to the idea of filming this entire movie outside in a forest, how should I phrase this? So of everything you have to do in production, maybe even in development and pre-production, gathering resources, is there any particular thing that proved most challenging, or maybe something that you couldn't get and it inspired a creative pivot and made something better because you had a change from the original plan?
Yeah, okay. I will say, I think I've talked before about the burnt glade sequence, was almost didn't happen because of wind. And we needed that very specific look with the mist, and that, that almost fell apart. But I will say There was a sequence in the end. That final fight. We really iterated a lot on, and we almost had a certain location that we couldn't shoot there because it was protected forestry wildlife, and so it forced us to go to another spot, and that aesthetically I wasn't as in love with, and it's sort of what drove the choice to have it all be snowbound, so that extra snow layer would add a little piece of visual interest. But then in moving there, we came up with the cool choreography. We built something around the terrain of this other location, and when we let that go, we were starting to figure out what could the choreography be here, and that forced us into her setting up these different traps for the predator, and then B, crafting that what I think is such a cool moment when she slides into the rocks and its shield stops against the rocks, and then we have that great face off, and then she grips the mandible. All that wasn't in the initial choreography and came from, okay, if it can't be there, let's think of other things and we really just bought us more time to figure out the cool, and I just love those mandibles have been a thing we've seen in all these Predator movies, and finally it's turned against him, or it, and the intelligence of her to like think of the rocks because she knows that shield's coming out. Anyway, so yeah.
Now, because I'm mad, I left post-production out of that piss poorly worded question that I just threw at you to focus on your work with your editor on this. Can you give me an example of something that, maybe you liked on set, but when you were working on the edit, you found almost like a hidden corner and realized something was stronger than you ever realized. And in the post-production phase, you were able to amplify it to show it off more?
Boy, there's probably a bajillion of those. And it's such a good question. The things that come to mind that Angela was so gifted at were there's a couple of montages in the movie where actually even so there's emotional moments. Like there's one where Tabe comes back with the lion head, and he's sort of being crowned, so to speak, war chief, and the current war chief is giving a fairly rousing speech to everyone, but instead, because to put it more in Nadi's perspective, we played with it just being very minimal score, brooding, and all sort of looks from person to person, and that made it so much more tethered to her emotional experience, and more deeply felt, I think. And there's another scene where the mom gets really bad news that her son is killed, and she gave, the younger warrior, the younger hunter, telling her like he was good, and she was, and like hearing the news was amazing, and instead we cut it so you didn't really hear any of it. It was all implied, and you saw just slivers of her performance, and like all just said to, that felt so much more emotional. I remember seeing a scene and I might be misremembering it, but in 21 Grams, when Naomi Watts gets bad news. I don't even remember the plot that much of the movie, but I remember she's in a hospital and she starts having an intense emotional breakdown, and it's over either score or quiet. So you're seeing it, and it's so heightened, and you're just seeing that sliver, and that's enough. You don't need to hear the wailing and the news. You don't even need to hear the news. You just need to see the shoulders hunch and like, oh, I know what's happening with that person. So I think that was the inspiration for the movie that I could not even. I mean, I remember loving it when it came out, 20 Grams, but that and Babel back to back, I was like, the greatest. Yeah.
All right, I got to let you go soon. You have a lot more promoting to do, which you should, because I want to see this movie get all the love it deserves. I'm going to end with, kind of like a future type question, because you've already brought up Mad Max during our conversation, and I've heard you mention before how that movie kind of inspired you to want to tell a story via action and how it led to this. So I am wondering, since either seeing Mad Max or having finished making Prey, have you had a similar experience with a different type of film, a recent movie that inspired you in a way that we might see reflected in a future project you tackle?
Oh boy, Perry, so good, so good. Maybe I will say strangely a reference that never leaves me. That's a modern movie is and fuels so much of this stuff and continues to fuel me is Guardians of the Galaxy. And I haven't seen the third one yet, but
Oh, so good.
I know, I hear it's amazing. But specifically because it's so ridiculous. So many of the ideas in it are so ridiculous, and yet emotionally the sentiment is so true and so good that I always like. And that is also a movie where that could have been the movie that Marvel jumped the shark. That could have been the one that had the little raccoon and a talking tree, and that could have gone bad. And actually, it was a safer bet for how bold it was, rather than I think prior to that film, people could see bold choices as being that could ruin it, and that started this. I think maybe there's another film that I'm miscounting, where it's like, no, it was successful because of the raccoon and the talking tree. That's why, and because of the guy from the TV show that was the lead. All of those big choices are why it was successful. It wasn't successful despite those things. So I think about that a lot, and I'm encouraged by the commercial safety in bold decision making. So
I like that thought quite a bit because it suggests to me that our future will be filled with, bold, maybe wide appeal films that also have unique touches that keep us on our toes and keep this a really exciting creative space.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the more we have of that kind of material, the better we are.
Totally. Yeah.
All right. I have to leave you. I'm going to say congratulations again. And I will remind our audience, if you haven't, go watch Prey. If you've watched it, watch it again. And also talk about it. Spread the word. I think it's a very special movie and you deserve a whole lot of love. You got it last year. I want to see you get it this year. And I have a feeling this will be a highly rewatched movie well into the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you.